Hajime's adventures continue, and now Yue is narrating that before, in the desert, it was extremely hot, though not as much as in the Gruen volcano, where it was nearly unbearable. Suddenly, a demon appeared and severely injured her beloved Hajime, something she obviously doesn't intend to forgive. She also mentions that Mew is a beauty to her, and later, they stopped in Erison, where she could reunite with Remia, her mother. This reunion was so special for her, and in the future, she'd like to be a mother. After that, the submarine headed toward the sunken ruins of Melusine, and when they passed through, a huge explosion hit them. Yue wonders if Hajime's friends and Shay will be okay. Then, they said goodbye to Mew, promising to return with her, and left Erison. Later, they met Liliana, who warned them about the danger approaching Hylia, which turned out to be a demon attack. In fact, the one who had injured Hajime was there. Hajime fought a girl claiming to be an apostle, Aiko, and Tio blew something up. They then took a new companion, Kaori, who died and was brought back to life. Now, they're heading toward the great tree in the sea of trees in Alina. They only need to complete 2 more labyrinths, and Yue wants to finish everything so she can fulfill her dream with the protagonist. Later, the king of Rome came to ask the blonde what she was doing, to which she replied, it was a secret. Later, all gathered. The protagonist asked the princess if they wanted him to drop them off at the imperial border. She said yes. Ishizuku asked if she would go see Emperor Hoel-Sher, but Kaori interrupted, saying she would like to go someday. Hajime obviously didn't recommend it, and Liliana agreed, explaining that although the inhabitants of the empire are human, the country is very different from Hylia. It's a military nation made up of powerful mercenaries and adventurers, preaching a meritocracy based on strength. They kill their enemies, steal what they want, and the strong subjugate the weak. They don't hesitate to use people for their benefit, even having prisoners or slaves. However, Hylish is not an ideal place either, as it treats magicless beastmen as a vile race abandoned by God. Because of this, Shay is somewhat upset, but Tio tells the princess it's not with her, as Shay has had bad experiences with imperial soldiers. Liliana asks her to share that story, and Shay agreed. It turns out that this all happened before she met the protagonist and Yue, when they were leaving the forest and some imperial soldiers found them. The tragic events that followed included the kidnapping of many of their relatives. Shay feels guilty for everything that happened, but the others assure her it's not her fault. The problem was the Vervine law, which condemned beastmen with magical powers, and of course, it's also the Empire's fault for using them as slaves. Koke now wants to postpone the Great Labyrinth idea, as he wants to go save the beastmen. However, Hajime tells him that subjugating that race in this world is common, and getting involved in such matters isn't the best for them, since they don't belong to this world. Still, the protagonist makes it clear that if Koke wants to go, he should. Koki, seeing that Hajime doesn't get involved in others' matters, leaves the room, and Shizuku follows him to check on him. Koki can't understand how, despite all the power Hajime has, he can just stand by and do nothing in the face of such injustice. Shizuku suggests it might be Hajime's choice, as she doesn't believe he's as confident as he seems. She thinks he might actually be desperate, but for something more personal, the desire to live with his loved one. She reminds him that Hajime didn't always have the power he possesses now, as he was once considered useless and a failure. Yet, he managed to rise up, not to defeat a god or save the world, but for something far more personal. She believes Hajime is different from others, and because of this, she doesn't think she could convince him to do something just because he can. Koki was about to say something, but he's interrupted when he notices the ship's course change suddenly. It seems the Imperial soldiers are chasing someone with bad intention. It turns out to be Lana and Mina, something Hajime suspected since their drastic change in direction couldn't be ignored. Koki says they need to save them immediately because those soldiers could harm these vulnerable women. Hajime tells him to calm down, saying they're not vulnerable, as they are from the Haulia tribe, and if he looks at how they left some of those soldiers behind, he'll see how strong they are. In fact, it seems like the two of them are luring the Imperial soldiers to take them down, as they are incredibly strong, leaving the others stunned as they wiped out the bad soldiers. Liliana wonders if all rabbit men are like Shay, but quickly answers herself, saying no, the ones fighting are strong because they endured Hajime's hellish training. After they defeated almost all the soldiers, one of them, with his last strength, tried to harm Nea, but Hajime quickly intervened. The Imperial soldiers recognized Hajime and gave him a warm welcome. One of them thanked him for his help, surprised by the arrival of such an amazing ship. Hajime responded that it was no big deal, as they probably didn't need it, and expressed how happy he was to see how strong everyone had become. Shay had many questions, like where her father was, what they were doing fighting there, but Parl suggested it would be better to go to a more suitable place to talk, as it was a long story. He also explained to Shay that his name was no longer Par, but Balf the Executor. The same went for Lana, who now went by Lana Inferina, and Mina, now Mina Asteria the Skybreaker. Nia was now Nia Stratum, the Butcher. Yao was Yao Celius, the Ghost. And Jor was Jorgen, the Silent Blade. The new names were a bit confusing, but they'll still call them by the old one. Parl then told Hajime that they had also chosen a few names for him, and he had to decide between White Fang Hurricane or Red Death Rondo. Hajime couldn't understand why they thought he'd like such nickname, and the rabbits began to argue about which one suited him best based on his traits. Shizuku and Susu couldn't help but laugh at the situation, but Hajime wasn't amused at all. He warned them that if they kept it up, he'd give them what they deserved. Later, everyone boarded the ship, and there, Hajime asked them what on earth had been going on. The fact that so many beastmen have been kidnapped means that the Empire has ventured too far into the forest. Parl explains that the problem wasn't the Empire itself, but the unknown monsters they brought with them. Although they managed to defeat them quickly, they had to use all their weapons to do so. To restore the defenses, the Halia retreated to their settlement. Nia mentions that the timing was wrong since the Imperial soldiers arrived at that exact moment. The soldiers' goal wasn't to invade them, but to capture them directly. Lana continues her story, saying they interrogated the captured soldiers, and it seems that the Empire was attacked by a powerful horde of monsters. Furthermore, the Imperial capital suffered severe damage. Later, they claimed they needed labor, but started kidnapping the Halia for sinister purposes. Naturally, the Halia couldn't let them take their people, so the chief led an elite squad to the Imperial capital. However, no one knows what happened to them, as contact was lost once they entered the city. Lana mentions that they are now one of the squads assigned to find out what happened to the chief. Recently, they were gathering information near the capital when they saw a carriage full of slaves and decided to rescue them. Given the severity of the situation, the protagonist asks Parley if he wants to join them since they're heading to the Empire. Everyone agrees, but Shay tells Hajime that their priority right now is the Great Labyrinth. However, Hajime knows that she's worried about Kam and the others. She, although concerned, has faith that her father and the others will be safe one way or another. Hajime gently strokes her head and notices her ears drooping, which shows she's forcing herself to smile. He asks her not to do that and to return to being the honest girl he first met, the one who didn't keep things to herself. He also reassures her that it's perfectly normal to feel bad in certain situations, and there's nothing wrong with expressing it. The protagonist makes it clear that even if he doesn't show it, she's very important to him, and if necessary, he's willing to use all his power. Finally, Shay breaks down in tears, releasing all the pressure she was holding in. She is deeply worried about her father and the others. Now, Hajime feels much more relieved, as it's better for no one to suppress their emotions. The others also feel a little more at ease seeing that Shay has returned to being her usual self. Hajime intervenes to prevent Koki from causing trouble and warns him that if he really wants to do something, he should at least not involve them. Annoyed, Koki questions his double standard, asking why he cares so much about Shay, but not about the other beastmen. However, Hajime responds that the question makes no sense since Shay is different from the rest of her race. At that moment, their priority is to gather information and avoid drawing attention. The others agree with him, as Shay's family is the most important thing right now. This situation is exhausting Shizuku, and Tio teasingly comments that she acts like an old lady for always worrying about others. She suggests that Shizuku should allow herself to be taken care of for one, perhaps by Hajime, for example. After spending the entire day gathering information, Hajime remarks that Kam and the others have caused quite a stir, which led to their arrest and transfer to the castle. From now on, he believes it would be best to continue the investigation only with Yue, but Shay is completely against it, suspecting that his real intention is to sneak away and kiss her in private. Kaori cannot believe that Hajime is thinking about such things at such a critical moment, while Tio complains that Yue is always the one who gets to spend time alone with him, arguing that she should also have her chance. The girls start talking about similar things, while the other two can't stand the fact that they don't have the same luck as Hajime. However, he interrupts, saying it's time to stop talking nonsense. He then explains that he will go only with Yue, as there is a high probability that they will have to torture someone. After that, the group splits up. Not long after, they reunite, and someone comments that Yue looks radiant. Hajime already knows what they're thinking and asks them to stop saying absurd things. He explains that the reason Yue looks that way is simply because she drank a bit of his blood, nothing more. But putting that aside, he informs them that he has obtained what he was looking for. Because of that, later that night, he, Yue, and Shay will go to a location where Kam is likely being held. Since the situation is dangerous, they will probably need to use presence concealment and teleportation. Kuki suggests that since the Empire captured Shay's family, the simplest solution would be to directly request their release. Lily is in the castle, and he is the hero, so they could negotiate. However, Hajime responds that Kam and the others illegally entered the Empire and killed several soldiers, so it wouldn't make sense for them to be released just by asking. Moreover, doing so could harm the princess's diplomatic efforts, making it an unviable option. Hajime then asks Kuki for a favor, to distract the soldiers while he infiltrates a high-security location. To do this, Kuki will have to pretend that he is trying to rescue a beastman. Kuki enthusiastically agrees, and as a thank you, Hajime gifts them masks in the style of the Power Rangers. He explains that the hero can't cause chaos without concealing his identity. Kuki gets the red mask, Ryutaro the blue one, Taniguchi the yellow one, and Shizuku the pink one, which she doesn't like. Meanwhile, in the cells, the prisoners comment that Asura will surely rescue them. When they see him, they believe they're hallucinating, but Hajime tells them to keep quiet. Outside, the disturbances have begun, and with the masks, the distraction plan works even better than expected. Annoyed at being attacked by someone wearing a pink mask, the battle begins. Meanwhile, Hajime's group has found a room where terrible things are happening. Several Imperial soldiers are punishing Shei's father, but due to his immense resistance, it seems that he is actually mentally frustrating them. Eventually, Hajime rescues him, and although he is in very bad condition, he is surprised to see Hajime. Once everyone is reunited, Shei thanks Hajime, feeling much more at ease now that her people are safe and together. Cam, on the other hand, wants to speak with Hajime to tell him everything that happened. He explains that they were captured alive and interrogated every day. The Imperials wanted to know what caused the drastic change in the Halia, where they were getting their weapons, and what Verbergen's intentions were. Hajime asks him to get to the point, and Kam reveals that the new Halia tribe, including those they adopted into their families, has decided to declare war on the Empire. To Shei, this makes no sense and seems insane, but Cam insists that they will do it no matter the consequences. This causes her to react aggressively, but Hajime intervenes, asking her to listen to what Cam has to say before acting impulsively. Hajime asks if Cam mentioned this, with the intention of having them join his cause, but Cam denies it. However, he admits that the training they received from Hajime was what enabled them to make this decision. This makes Hajime feel somewhat responsible for such recklessness. Cam continues to explain that the Emperor has shown an unhealthy obsession with the rabbit people, to the point of wanting to turn them into his pets. Outraged, Cam spat in the Emperor's face upon hearing such an abomination, but this only fueled the Emperor's interest even more. The Emperor considers capturing and training all the rabbit men to be an incredibly entertaining task. It is very likely that he will decide to invade the forest to capture more, and Verbergen is not in a condition to withstand another attack. If the Empire guaranteed to leave them alone in exchange for handing over all the rabbit men, the situation would be different. However, if they remain on the defensive, their entire species could be captured. For Hajime, this is an interesting situation. Cam believes the Halia can survive on their own, but the other rabbitmen cannot, and the thought of them losing their future because of him is unbearable. Hajime understands his stance, but warns him not to delude himself into thinking they can face the Empire with just 100 fighters. Cam is aware of this and doesn't plan a direct attack. Instead, thanks to his race's ability to hide, they have devised another plan, an assassination. Hajime asks if he thinks the Imperial family isn't prepared for something like that, but Cam clarifies that their target is not the royal family, but rather those who surround them. Hajime warns him that even if they succeed, the Empire could respond with a total extermination of their species, or perhaps agree to a negotiation. It's a dangerous gamble, but they will not back down. Shei, distressed, hears her father tell her not to be sad, as they are happy to have become stronger and now can fight for their right to live. Nothing will stop them. Hajime, witnessing the scene, tells Shei that he won't fight, but he will help them. Then, he orders everyone to get ready. They must prove that the Halia are not easy prey, as discrimination against beastmen is completely normalized. If Hajime fights, the same thing that happened when he left will occur again. The albino confesses that he is doing all of this because he will not allow his little ray of sunshine, Shei, to remain depressed because of his actions. So he has no choice but to cooperate. He orders them to subdue the Emperor, his family, his allies, and his subordinates right before their eyes. They must take the castle and make it clear that no one will come to their rescue. They need to show that the Empire fell in a single night, and that its history will reflect that becoming an enemy of the Halia is the worst mistake anyone could make. The protagonist is excited, and everyone else responds to his call to war. He states that with just over 100 units, he will conquer the Empire, and nothing will be able to stop him. Okay guys, don't forget to subscribe or I'll steal your girlfriends. Subscribe and leave a like. See you next time. Yue gave Hajime a kiss, feeling happy that he prioritized Shea over the labyrinth. It reassures her to see that he now has more important people in his life. The next day, Princess Liliana arrives at the Empire and is received by Emperor Gahard, who is expecting news from her. Surprised by Hajime's incredible feats, he asks if he is truly as powerful as the rumors say. Liliana explains that Hajime follows the principle of mutual non-interference and that it would be best to avoid any conflict with him. However, the Emperor doesn't seem pleased with that idea and questions whether she has come for any other reason besides informing him about the situation. Liliana responds that she has also come to request his help and discuss a possible future collaboration. Gahard understands and agrees to send a division of soldiers, as the fall of the kingdom would be a strategic problem for the Empire, forcing them to divide their forces in the west. Additionally, he warns the princess that she will play a crucial role in this matter, as she will have to marry his son, Bios, a violent man whom she will have to learn to handle. The Emperor also mentions that the night before, 4 intruders wearing colorful masks attacked the Empire and asks for her opinion on the matter. Liliana suggests they might be demons, but Gahard doubts it, as he finds it strange that they would wear such ridiculous masks. However, something even more suspicious stands out. One of them wielded a sword very similar to the sacred sword. Liliana, shocked, can't help but wonder what those fools are doing. It makes no sense to hide their identity with masks if they then use something so recognizable. Moreover, the Emperor reveals that the attackers were talking about improving conditions for beastmen. Then he asks Liliana if the hero traveled to the forest with Hajime, to which she confirms. Gahard takes the opportunity to inform her that they recently captured some beastmen with incredible combat skills, able to fight on equal footing with his soldiers. However, the previous night, all of them escaped from prison at the same time as the masked attackers' assault. Realizing that Hajime is behind all this chaos, Liliana feels pressured. The Emperor, growing more suspicious, asks if Hajime has strong allies and if there is a rabbit man in his group. With no other choice, she confirms it. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door and informs them that some people have come to see Princess Liliana. When she asks who they are, they tell her it's the hero and his group. Liliana can't believe what she's hearing. Why did they come here? And worse, why through the front door? Outside, Hajime and the others are waiting, ready for whatever comes next. Grit, the captain of the 3rd Squadron, informs the group that the princess is already aware of their arrival. However, his attention quickly shifts to the rabbit woman accompanying them. Something about her seems oddly familiar, and he is certain they have crossed paths before. At that moment, Shay's memories resurface, recalling an encounter with this man. Grit smirks, revealing that slave traders paid him handsomely for her friends, and implying that she, too, could fetch an even greater price. Disgust fills Shay as she glares at him, but he seems amused by her reaction. He warns her that just because she is traveling with the hero, it doesn't mean she is untouchable. In fact, he directly asks Cookie if he would be willing to hand her over. Before Cookie can respond, Hajime steps in, shutting down the conversation. He firmly tells Grit to take them to the princess, making it clear that they have no time to waste with someone like him. A while later, they find themselves in front of Princess Liliana, who is visibly exasperated. She demands an explanation for all the absurd events that have taken place, especially since she is certain Hajime is the mastermind behind everything. Though slightly annoyed, Hajime casually dismisses her concerns, stating that a few unexpected things happened along the way, and that Shay was feeling down. So naturally, events unfolded as they did. Liliana, unconvinced, presses further. She wants to know why they are even here, when their original goal was the labyrinth. With the Emperor about to receive them soon, she insists they provide her with details, so that their stories align and avoid raising suspicion. Hajime, however, remains unfazed. He tells her she's overthinking things, and reassures her that everything will be clear by the evening. Until then, all she needs to tell the Emperor is that they finished their previous matters faster than expected and decided to stop by. Liliana is in disbelief at how nonchalant everyone is, especially after the previous night's prison break involving the masked attackers. She understands that Hajime orchestrated the rescue of the rabbit men for Shay's sake, but she struggles to grasp why they have now come here of all places. Hajime refuses to explain any further, which only fuels her frustration. Before she can argue more, a soldier arrives to announce that the Emperor is ready to see them. Without delay, they proceed to the audience chamber. The Emperor greets them enthusiastically, but is particularly intrigued by Hajime. He wastes no time asking if he is truly the one called Hajime. To everyone's surprise, Hajime steps forward, responding with an unusual display of formality. He confidently confirms his identity, and even expresses that it is an honor to meet His Majesty. His companions can hardly believe what they are witnessing. Hajime never acts this way toward anyone. Gahard, amused, reassures him that there's no need for formalities, as Liliana has already described just how insolent he usually is. This remark visibly irritates Hajime. Realizing that the Emperor wants to see his true personality, Hajime decides there is no point in pretending any further. If Gahard wants to meet the real him, then so be it. The Emperor, having heard of Hajime's extraordinary feats, eagerly awaits to see just what kind of person he truly is. Gahard, the Emperor, is intrigued by Hajime after learning that he managed to conquer a great labyrinth, gaining the ability to create artifacts with devastating power, capable of wiping out demonic armies and reducing months-long journeys to just a few days. With great interest, he asks if Hajime intends to share these artifacts with the kingdom or the empire. Hajime firmly responds with a no. The Emperor presses further, questioning whether he truly believes he can monopolize such a valuable object, and whether he considers himself worthy of wielding such immense power. Unfazed, Hajime makes it clear that he acts according to his own will, and has no intention of sharing anything with anyone. The atmosphere grows tense, as Hajime's words have been openly disrespectful toward the Emperor. However, Gahard does not seem offended. Instead, he calls for everyone to remain calm. He is fully aware that fighting Hajime at this moment would be disastrous for all involved, so he prefers to avoid unnecessary conflict. Hajime, slightly puzzled, does not understand why the Emperor seems to be enjoying the situation. Gahard explains that, as the leader of an empire, he finds it entertaining to host someone as powerful as Hajime. Moreover, he expresses some envy, noting how fortunate Hajime is to be surrounded by such beautiful women. His interest in Shay is evident, and he asks if Hajime would be willing to hand her over. He finds her unusual hair color fascinating and admires her bold demeanor, as she does not show any fear in the presence of an emperor. In fact, she reminds him of the toys he recently captured, referring to the rabbit men he still holds prisoner. With a shameless smirk, Gahard suggests that Hajime accompany him to see the remaining captives. Naturally, Hajime declines without a second thought. Yet the Emperor continues, describing how some of the prisoners possessed short swords and impressive equipment, claiming they were creatures worth seeing. He also mentions that some of them managed to escape the night before, and asks Hajime if he knows of any artifact capable of such a feat. Once again, Hajime feigns ignorance, stating that while he would love to own something that allows him to escape dangerous places, he has no knowledge of such an item. Determined to extract more information, Gahard asks Hajime one last question. What would it take for him to ally with the Empire? Without hesitation, Hajime responds that his only condition is to find a way back to his own world. Only if he manages to return home would he even consider supporting the Empire. This answer enrages the Emperor, who now has confirmation that everything said about Hajime is true. In his eyes, Hajime is nothing more than a spoiled child with no intention of cooperating. At that moment, a soldier interrupts the conversation to deliver a report to the Emperor. Gahard seizes the opportunity to take his leave, mentioning that he has conducted the necessary verifications for the day. Additionally, he announces that there will be a banquet in Liliana's honor, and he expects everyone to attend. As part of the event, her engagement to his son will be officially announced. The group is left stunned by the news, but Liliana clarifies that following the king's death and the lack of stable leadership in her kingdom, strengthening their alliance with the Empire is crucial. This engagement had always been implied, and the banquet merely serves to formalize it. Curious, Kuki asks if she at least has feelings for her fiancé, but to Liliana, that detail is completely irrelevant. The marriage in question is meant to unite two entire nations, something the hero finds completely unacceptable. However, for Liliana, such arrangements are common in royalty and nothing out of the ordinary. Hajime shares a similar view. These are matters that concern the nobility, and he sees no reason to interfere. Thus, he chooses to remain indifferent. The only thing he asks of Kuki is to stay rational and not do anything reckless. Later, as the princess prepares for the evening's banquet, her fiancé arrives to check on her. It is immediately obvious that this man is a complete fool. Liliana reminds him that it is inappropriate for a man to enter a lady's chambers without permission. Yet, he couldn't care less. Since he is to be her husband, he believes he has every right to do as he pleases. Without hesitation, he orders Liliana's attendants to leave and then crosses a line, doing things he absolutely shouldn't. This man is so twisted that he enjoys dominating those who oppose him, and Liliana fits that description perfectly. Fortunately, Hajime had been keeping an eye on the situation the entire time, thanks to one of his mechanical spiders. Just as things are about to escalate, he intervenes, preventing the prince from going any further. By nightfall, everyone arrives at the banquet dressed in their finest attire. However, they are all well aware that something dangerous could happen at any moment. Meanwhile, the rabbit men have already begun making their move. Now, the real event is about to begin. Thanks for getting here, guys. Remember to subscribe or else I'll steal your girlfriends. If you made it to this part of this video, comment the word Anigoat, subscribe, and remember, I upload 3 videos daily. I'll be waiting for you in all 3.